Right. Hey everybody. I'm just doing this ahead of schedule because I just wanted to relax for a little bit. This is chill time, as you can see on the screen there, and just saying hi. Just kind of want to give people some time to relax, come inside, grab some popcorn. Not coffee. This is not games over coffee. This is games over popcorn now. GOP and Grand Old Party. Games over popcorn. Yeah, so say what's up in the chat if you want. I'm gonna start here in 5 minutes, but just relax for the moment. Get some people coming in. See if I can say hi to everybody who's in here. We're gonna be talking about this game, which of course I will wait until we're ready to do that. I want to talk about some other things that have been going on at the moment. I'm like playing several games at the moment. What game did I just play? Oh, I just played what was that game called? Station 8, which is really cool. Hey, any place but here. Good screen name. Yeah, Station 8 was really interesting. I'm a big fan of what was that other game? Exit 8. I really liked that one. So Station 8 was pretty cool. I didn't play all of it yet, but I like the surreal horror type of stuff. Yeah, just chilling for another 3 minutes. If you guys are just popping in here, it's chill time, as you can see. We're just gonna relax until it gets to 1 p.m. What was another thing? Let's see. And if you guys have played anything, tell me what you've been playing, because I've not been playing Crimson Desert. YouTube is really bad at giving notifications, by the way. It usually tells me when the streams end instead of start. Well, I'm glad that you made it to the beginning of this one, so that's cool. Yeah, this is the first time that I've streamed on YouTube, but I feel like Twitch is much more forgiving when it comes to not just the setup, but also the notifications and stuff. Or it feels that way to me anyway. And I'll probably do some Twitch streaming for other purposes, but I'll stick to YouTube for this one. But yeah, let's head to some games until 1 p.m. Again, we're going to chill here until it's 1 p.m. But yeah, Crimson Desert I've been wanting to play, but it's not been, it's just way too expensive, I think. Hi, hey, SJ in Comics. I saw that that I saw you on the other stream, or that you said that you were commenting on that other stream. So, I was gonna say congratulations for coming here. I meant welcome. Congratulations. Games over Qualia. I wonder often if people get confused with that name. I'm sure it's not like a thing that everyone says constantly. You ever have some qualia? You ever have qualia? But yeah, we're gonna talk about Shroombot's game here in a little bit. There's a video that I've been wanting to do actually sometime soon. I've been wanting to do one about submitted games that were not they didn't make I didn't make a video for them yet, or not ever. There was one actually submitted here that I kind of like skipped over because it was a clone of another game, and it was called Surface Breaker. It was a clone of Dome Keeper. That was a really cool game, and I told the developer that I really liked it. Not Dome Keeper. I mean, I do like Dome Keeper, but I told that guy Surface Breaker that I really liked it. Do you ever get mini games that aren't made with pixel art? A few. Many of them are pixel art. That's kind of funny. Let's see, is there one that comes to mind? Not necessarily. There was a few 3D ones that I had back. Actually, yeah, back when I was doing consulting, there was a lot more 3D stuff. There was a lot more not open world, but first person ones also. Which is really interesting. Okay, it is 1 p.m. Let's get going here. I'm going to go ahead and turn off chill time because it's not chill time anymore. All right, everybody, welcome to Games Over Qualia. My name is Devon, which of course you should probably know that by now. We're going to talk about Credit Farm by Shroombot today. We're going to do this in 4 parts. We're going to have the first part as me talking about my analysis of this game and basically what I thought. I'm going to ignore the comments. I'm going to try to stay away from the screen. This is my screen right here. I'm going to try to stay away from my screen, just talk to the camera about this analysis that I have. And then once I'm done with the analysis, then I'll go back into the comments. If you guys have any questions, please put it into the chat, and then I'll get to that in the second part. And then in the third part, we will talk about the dev's intentions, and then I'll have my response to that, talk about my analysis of my response. And then the fourth part will be an open discussion about the dev's responses, which then I'll go back to the chat. We'll have an informal ending, and that is that. So thank you so much for joining us, and let's go ahead and get this going. So here is Credit Farm right here. Okay, so this is Credit Farm by Shroombot. So Credit Farm is a game that I think is best described as a number manipulation game. That's what I would call it, at least. I think mostly this game is trying to be a deck builder, sort of. So let's look at the gameplay really quick. So the gameplay for this game is you are a person known as a debtician, and what people do is they come over to you and they say, "Hey, can you overload my bank account?" Which I don't know what that means, but they say that, and then they give you their credit card. You take their credit card and you start spending it wildly, like just sending them into skyrocketing debt. And the point is to get them so in debt that they quote unquote overload the bank account, which then cancels their debt somehow. So that's what the gameplay is. That's all it is. But then you have, of course, that's the core game loop, I guess you could say. But the what happens is that you upgrade with other credit cards. So there's more credit cards that come in, and then you have like this suitcase basically that's full of lots of different credit cards that you're doing for like a bunch of people basically. And so you try to get, you have like a collection of 4 credit cards at a time, and then in the next tier, there's several tiers. In the next tier, you have, I think, 5, and then it might go up from there, but I'm not exactly sure. I only had the first 2 tiers of this game. So the first tier is 4 credit cards. You have 4, and you can spend them in different ways by buying different items. But each credit card has its own kind of special thing that it does. So the first credit card just buys things. The second one adds $6 of debt onto the purchase that you make. The third one does something like gives you $5 extra. Oh, no. It lets you use it twice per turn, and also takes away $5 of your debt when you're spending. And I'm getting a little confused with the language, and we'll get into that. But that's basically what you do here. And as you can see in the game, once it comes up on the node-based map there, you have this map that basically shows you each of the levels, and you're going through each client that you're working for, and they all want you to do something vaguely illegal for them, and it has to do with this kind of, spending money in a really crazy way. So that's what the game is about, and you basically, buy items in just like the most insane ways, and you're trying to get that big number to go up. And that's what the game is about. Just get that big number up. So that's what that is. Now, for my analysis of it and my first impressions, I felt very disconnected from this game. And I think the reason why I felt so disconnected was because of the way that it portrays reality. Well, like I just said, I was having trouble coming up with the idea of the language that's involved here, because the game is about sending people into debt. I'm going to go into each of these specific things that disconnected me, but there was a lot of little things. The first little thing was the big number at the top. The big number is red, and it goes up in dollar amounts. So you buy an item, and then your number goes up, and you're like, okay, well, that's sending me into debt, but upward. So I keep thinking of debt as a negative number, and this one you have to think of it as a positive number. So that was the first thing that kind of set me off. It was just a little semantics thing. Then after that, then you use credit cards to buy specific items, but the items themselves are so strange to me. They're at first, they're construction items, and they change a little bit as you go on through the game. But the first ones are construction items, and they're strangely cheap. You have things like worker boots, you have orange cones, you have hammers, wrenches, screwdrivers, and they're all costing between, like, the most is probably $25. You pay that much for a hammer, and then the rest is something around $4 to, to $10 or something. So it was also very strange to to say, okay, I have a credit card, I'm going to start spending it on construction supplies. It's just odd because my character is not a construction worker, nor am I working for construction workers. So very strange. So that was the second thing. The third thing that took me out was the ways in which that this money is like calculated to make your big number go up. It makes sense in this kind of synergistic, I guess you could say, kind of way, where you have a credit card that says, okay, every time that you buy an item with this, it's going to be double the price. Or every time you buy an item with this, it's going to be $30 more or $30 less or whatever on your second turn or whatever, all those types of modifiers that you can do. But it's weird because why does any of that happen? Like, okay, so I have a credit card that says I'm going to, whenever I spend it, it doubles the amount of the other credit cards that I have. How does that make sense in reality? Now, I know I'm picking this apart, and I know that I'm just talking about semantics here, and games are not about semantics. They are much more about that. They're much more about mechanics and everything. But that's the thing that kept taking me out and disconnecting me from everything, was that the logic that the world seems to imply does not work in the mechanical sense. You can also buy items that are negative money, and that doesn't work logically to me. If I buy a boot, for example, worker boots, they'd have this effect of giving you plus $5 in debt every time that you buy another item. So if you have purchased 4 items in that single turn, then each boot that you have bought will give you $20 extra debt, $5 per item per turn. And they all exist for about 5 turns, I think. But when you buy the boot up front, it costs -$, meaning if you buy it, you receive $9, which is not like the thing that you want, or you receive, whatever the negative value was. So again, very strange semantically. The game kind of language and the game universe that it's setting up here doesn't make any sense to me. And even the premise, which is overloading bank accounts, also makes 0 sense to me. The idea of overloading an account does kind of happen in reality, where you can spend so much on a credit card that it goes into default, where if you're not making, but that's more of a payment thing. If you're not making payments, then your debt isn't canceled at all, but it's just not, it's written off as a loss for that credit card company. And then they sell your debt to another collector, and then the collector tries to get you to pay them. Again, it's just reality shifting. It's just very, very strange. So anyway, those are the things that disconnected me from this game. And that's my feeling on the game. I understand that the stuff that I'm saying about the game is mostly semantics and it's mostly aesthetics. But there's a difference, not just between those two terms, but there's a difference in complaining about the game at a surface level and then trying to understand the game like methodically using the logic of the world that's being presented. So how I want to get into this is what I want to call visual versus mechanical ontology. So ontology is the state of being something. It's a philosophical term. I'm probably butchering that a little bit, but it matched for this kind of stuff that I wanted to talk about. But this what I want to get into is mechanical promise versus mechanical reality. So the promise of this game is make sure that I'm I'm not changing anything here if I put my cards on my streamer stuff. Mechanical promise versus mechanical reality. So the mechanical promise of this game is what's aesthetically here. And what I mean by aesthetics is all this decoration that we have, right? The decoration of the credit cards themselves, the objects that we're buying, the people that are asking us to do things for them. This is all like the world that's being set up. And it's not just decoration. It's actual like mechanical explanation. It's saying, here's a credit card, use that credit card to buy some things. Those things will send me into debt, which I need to go into I need to go into debt, into a very high debt. So please do this for me. So you take the card and you start doing it, and it feels strange to do it because the cards that you're spending, again, they don't make sense in reality. And yet what we're doing is it does mirror reality. We are talking about sending people into debt. We're talking about bank accounts. We're talking about objects. The objects that we're buying are real. Nothing is surreal, right? The whole thing about this is not surreal. And that's kind of one thing that I really wanted to go into was how disjunction kind of plays into this. So this is what I'm feeling, right? A clash between mechanics and aesthetics, right? There's some sort of weird clash going on here, and I want to talk about how that disjunction and how that clashing can be used with intent, basically. The first game that comes to mind is Post Void, and I'll show you some gameplay here. So Post Void is this. Be careful, by the way. This is very flashy. This game has a lot of flashing in it. This game is a surreal game. This is Post Void is a first-person shooter, and it's a roguelike, I think, something like that, where all you have to do is just shoot your way through a maze, basically. You go through a maze, there's people in your way, you got to shoot them until you get to the end, and you're racing against a clock, and the clock is your health, basically. It's a very strange game, and I love this game quite a lot. Nothing about it mechanically makes sense in real terms, right? Everything is very surreal in the sense that all the aesthetics being applied here, which is, as you can see in the gameplay here, you have this gun that doesn't really look like a gun. It looks like more like a needle. You have your head, your glowing crystal head on the left that has your life force in liquid that's just kind of draining out of your hand. The people that you're shooting have big mouths for heads. The place that you're in seems to be an endless house. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And then later on, you have dogs that come and attack you, but they're not dogs. They're big mouths that are stuck onto some sort of four-legged creature that's light blue. And then you have these turrets, these automatic turrets that are all around the place. And again, in this endless-looking house area that's somehow connected to a forest. And you're trying to race out of this endless house to get into a pond, and then you restart after that. It's a very strange game aesthetically, but it makes sense surrealistically because the disjunction is part of the point. The disjunction is the intent. The mechanics here are separate from the reality than the promise of reality. So what we have here, none of the aesthetics are saying, hey, you need to be aware that this is a house and that you're walking through a house. You need to be aware that the people that you're shooting are, mouths for heads. You need to be aware that the turrets that look at you are actual creatures. They're not saying any of that. None of that is actually mattering to your gameplay. It doesn't have to do with what you're doing, which is just going from point A to point B and destroying things along your route. I'll go ahead and go back to Credit Farm here because this is a very crazy looking game, isn't it? Back to Credit Farm. Okay, so in Credit Farm, this is what I mean by the disjunction being like something that feels like it's unintended, right? We have the promise of gameplay in here, which is credit card spending, and it's directly linked. Like the world itself that we see is directly linked to our gameplay, and that's what keeps me from interacting with the systems at a meaningful level. So that is basically what I wanted to talk about in my first impressions. I'll go ahead and go to the comments here in case you guys had any questions before we go on to the dev's intentions. So let's go ahead and pull that up. And we have some comments here. Okay, so what we have is, I'm going to go back from the top here. Let's see. We have a lot of talks here. What is this? I watched yesterday's stream and I don't understand this game. Hey, to no folks in the chat. Hi. Making a game easy to explain is tricky, but important for sure. Is the developer of this game here watching the stream? Let's see, a chess pawn. Oh, a sock. Okay, so some of those things, a chess pawn is what that looks like, but that's actually a trophy. Yeah, funny enough. It's not a sock. There are boots that look like socks in here. I think that's what you were talking about. Let's see, I see a VLC. Oh, that's funny, the orange cone. Let's see, having negative number items would make sense if you got a bonus for hitting that exact target. I would say so. This person said, he. Devon said a boot. Devon is Canadian. You guys are silly. I love how every click is so powerful. Like oh, for sure. Yeah, there was a lot of very good game juice in here. I like the game juice quite a lot. Games are shared language and try to onboard their user quickly. Yes, I would agree with that. Let's see, keep going down here. An item at negative cost. I don't get how an item can have negative cost. Yeah, you and me both. Jay. Happy to see the number of viewers rise up. Yeah, me too. I can't get my head around that, but I don't get the original premise of the intentionality of generating massive debt to have no debt. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening, and it's weird. I can't wait to see my game be played here too. Geez, that game looks hard. Not a lot of time to react before you get shot. Oh yeah, that's a crazy game. So that was post void. Yeah, no, I'm sorry about the flashing in there. Yeah, that's a very crazy game. Okay, so yeah, so no, doesn't seem like any comments specifically about the gameplay other than the ones that were up there about or at least there's no questions that you guys had. If you do have any questions, please do post them. I'll go ahead and read them. We're going to get into the dev's intentions now. So let me pull that up here and we can talk about that. Okay, so let's go back here. I'm going to ignore the chat now. So I will see you guys in a bit. As soon as I finish this second impressions, I guess you can call, then I'll come back and read some more. Okay, so this was the dev's intentions. So as you know, if you don't know, I'm going to go ahead and pull up my face here. Gameplay is still down there. If you don't know, so when a developer submits a game to me, I ask them some questions. And so when they answer these questions, they give them to me, and I don't read their answers yet. I'd read them until after I play the game, or wait until reading them. So anyway, so my first question was, what were you hoping that the player would feel while playing your game? This person answered, I wanted the player to feel like they were losing and that they won't manage to pull through in a level. Then manage to find a bunch of nice items that make sense to get 3 coins. Also, before starting that level, they should have fun trying to come up with a nice card synergy. Okay, so I think the 3 coins thing had to do with a specific build of this game that was not this one. Either that or they're talking about the coins where if we look at the game, I think there's a part here. So when I'm fast forwarding here. Fast forward, is that the term anymore? Yeah, so right there it says bronze complete right there. I think that's the coins they're talking about. Anyway, so the second question was, why did you choose this experience? This is a very important one, as opposed to any other experience. This person said, I chose this experience because I wanted the player to feel the fun of strategizing and planning ahead, but also the feeling of being able to buy anything you want and trying to squeeze as much profit as possible from a level. I think when he said profit, he meant debt, which is the opposite of profit. The third question was, were there any specific moments, mechanics, or ideas that you built around this emotional goal? Their answer was, first of all, there isn't a clear path to victory. This makes it much harder since you can't exactly plan how to finish a level most optimally, but it's fun to test out a build that you have already made and see what items you get. The lack of tutorial levels, quote unquote, also hints to this, since I find that teaching the player a certain mechanic while locking them down to only a couple items would ruin the fun. So that's kind of odd here because I feel like the game itself, goes against some of these things. So I want to talk about that third answer really quickly. So you said something about how, sorry, I have to, let me bring up that answer again. You said that, oh, the lack of tutorial levels. You do have a tutorial level in here though. In the very beginning, the items are locked down to just orange cones and is it boots? Orange cones and hammers, that's what it was, which I think is actually really good because if you lock it down to just orange cones and hammers, then it means that, you're not explaining too much to the player at once, right? They can buy a hammer or a hammer or an orange cone, and all that does is give them that, which is what they want. So great. So I don't know if that was a different answer for a different version of the game, but it seems like you're very much talking about synergies, and this is interesting because I definitely felt that does happen in this game for sure, but I would say that it's not it's not necessarily, it doesn't answer my question of why, right? So specifically, I want to go to question number 2. I think question number 2 is a very important question in this specific game. So my biggest deal, like I said, my disconnect with this game is that I just don't understand why we're doing any of the things we're doing. Now, you don't necessarily need to understand why, but as I explained before, this is a conflict between mechanical ontology and visual ontology, that we're explaining a world that happens here, and in that world, this gameplay exists. However, the world doesn't make any sense. Logically, the gameplay doesn't make any sense. So question number 2 was about me asking why this experience, why this one, why would you choose this one? And I was a bit of an internet sleuth, and I went to this person's YouTube profile, and they have a devlog for this game, which is awesome. And in several of their videos, they talked about wanting to create fun, and they wanted to create a specific type of I guess the fun that they were thinking of was this idea of synergy, right? Where you always have, like in deck builders, where you have a card that, has a bunch of modifiers that you create a certain outcome. And that can be really fun when you have a strategy that's really involved. For example, for the one that I always like to talk about is Balatro, because I'm not a huge deck builder kind of person, but Balatro is my jam. And I totally feel where you're coming from when it comes to, building synergies and stuff. When you have, but Balatro is a little bit different because you only use jokers and stuff. But I guess you could say like Inscription, or what's that other one? I can't remember the name. I'm sure it's going to be in the comments. But anyway, the ideas of positioning your deck so that you have very specific things, creating very specific synergies, right? One card will do something while another card is already doing another thing. You put them together, you get great stuff. In this game, you do the same thing, right? You have credit cards. In fact, some of the things, let me show you some of my stuff really quick. When I was doing this card right here on the right, or on the left side of the screen, you can see the black and red one. That one doubles all of the other cards as far as I remember. And that was really cool for using with one of those other, no, it's fine. I'll have to keep it. Anyway, but that one's really good for, making some of these other cards have a lot more value to them. So I could take a card and buy a negative valued object for a positive amount of money, because the bonus debt that I had on that card had a specific amount, but it was doubled by that other one, right? So there was a lot of strategies that were in my mind when I was playing this game. And I did get those dopamine hits that you're talking about. But I still got, disconnected from the whole thing. So what I want to ask you is why this experience, as in why this world? Why did you build this world? Why credit cards? And why these objects? And why overloading accounts? And why sending people into debt? What about that experience is fun to you? Because obviously you put a lot of thought into that. I mean, there's a whole story here. It makes sense that you did this on purpose, right? This wasn't an accident. You're not saying, oops, I put in a bunch of my credit card stuff. No, the idea was that you created this number manipulation system that makes a lot of sense to you, this synergy, and I really like that. But why this experience? Why the credit cards? And that's the thing that I really want to know here. And why wasn't it something like, for example, I'm going to pull up another one, which would be 2048. If I can, this one's not playing. Okay, well, anyway, if you remember 2048, that was a game that, nothing's playing now. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Okay, so anyway, 2048 was a game that was just number manipulation, right? It was a tile game, basically like those sliding logic puzzles, except it behaved differently, where you moved all the tiles at once. And the point was just to combine them and double up the values of your single value numbers until they get to 2048, or until one of them does. And like that game doesn't have a world attached to it. So clearly this idea of a credit card means something to you, as the developer, Shroombot. I think when you're creating this world that you feel something attractive about the idea of credit cards. And one of the things that you did say in your question, or in your answer, was that you liked the fantasy element. I can't remember explicitly the language that you used, but you did say that you like the idea of buying anything that you want. So in my mind, when I think about buying anything that I want with a credit card, my mind doesn't go to hammers and orange cones and beach balls and trophies. Those seem so random to me, especially with the value that there are. I'm not holding my credit card going, oh, finally I can spend $25 on a hammer, which maybe because that is kind of absurd for a hammer, but you're not thinking, oh, finally an orange cone, $15, finally a beach ball for -$10. Like, it doesn't, to me, that doesn't match. That doesn't match at all. Now, it might match for you. That might be something specifically that you're thinking of, that you're thinking, oh, that would be great. I would say that's probably not what you're thinking, because when I saw some of your older gameplay videos of your the previous iterations of this game, you had lots of random objects, and they were very random. And I saw like a game controller at one. There was still beach balls. You had, I think you had a TV at one point. I don't remember exactly, but it very, very much seems like the objects themselves are secondary to the whole experience. So again, I would ask why, right? I would ask why this experience and not something different. Why not just number manipulations? Why not just have the whole thing like 2048, where all it is on the side are just tokens that you have that just do things, and the objects themselves are not objects, but just things that you just match. Why not just matching numbers? So yeah, that's my disconnection from the whole thing. I felt a promise that was being made, and I felt like that promise was broken, is what I felt like, right? The promise was, I have credit cards, I'm going to be spending them on things, try to rack up as much debt as possible, and I felt like that was broken. So that's why I felt disconnected, and that's my response to your answer. So let's go back into the comments here and open up for discussion. You guys had said, let's see, wish I could stay, but I gotta help. Okay, peace. Stay safe. Here we go. Okay, just coming up with a random idea here because Devon mentioned inscription. Got you thinking, what if objects were being purchased from a shopkeeper from a debt company? Yeah, that kind of stuff. And the negative cost items are really just gross stuff. Yeah, that kind of stuff is what you're saying there, I think, is exactly what I'm trying to get at with this whole idea. So basically, the player would be conflicted about spending money to go into debt on cool stuff and getting money, but having to buy gross stuff. Right. So yeah, what Jay is saying here, Yayo, in the comments there, in the chat, I think is very important. I think what he's talking about there is the point of ontological. Whoops, my gameplay stopped. Of ontological clarity, right, where we have a world that actually makes sense to create. And I think you could really do this in kind of any way whatsoever. And I think that's a great way of thinking about it. There was another thing, was what happens to the items after you have purchased them? Oh, they go into, you have the items, and they're actually listed at one point. It's very strange, actually. When you buy the items, they do actually affect different things that you have. So for example, if you buy 3 different items in a single turn, like I said, the boots count on the items that you buy, but you can't ever see where your items are. There's a lot of bugs in this game. I did not get into the bugs, but I feel like that's one thing that's overlooked completely. The way that you can see the items and where they are is when you click on your little wallet that shows all of your credit cards, and then your items that you've bought are listed below, but they're not like in amounts. They just show which items you had purchased. So for example, a beach ball or a work boot, but it doesn't show all of them as far as I remember. Just like what you unlocked basically at that point. Let's see, we have, I think the game needs to give you a reason to buy these things that people's brains can accept. Right now it doesn't. Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. Yeah, I don't feel the need to buy anything, except for the game telling me that I need to. Lime Blossom said, it feels like the developer might have been going for a darker premise, like the movie Parasite. Oh, that's interesting. It definitely does feel that way. I mean, I do know that in the beginning there we have we have a guy who comes up and he says something to the effect of, "You're doing some pretty illegal stuff here." So I like that idea for sure. I would definitely follow that. I think that's a great idea. Yeah, so I did a whole video actually on Parasite in my other channel. Lime Blossom brings up a great thing there, a great suggestion. I did want to go into, let's see, something specific. What was it exactly? Oh, some of the bugs I just wanted to mention, I guess. Actually, the fruit also was weird. I don't know. I don't know if I want to go into all these things. Do you guys care about the bugs? Because there's a lot of bugs, or a lot of small bugs. They're not huge, but they're experience breaking for sure. Just not interested. Poverty and class systems. Yeah. This game, I think you definitely could make a stance. I think you could have a thematic tie-in. Most definitely, I think that Lime Blossom brings up a great point. If you had this idea of the thematic tie-in of some sort of class system, or the idea that that was brought up earlier by Jay, where you have, what was it exactly you said? You said if the objects are being purchased from a shopkeeper from a debt company, right? So if you were like trying to put people into debt for like a negative reason, right? For a nefarious reason, that sounds really interesting. Or the whole, when I was playing this game, one of the things that I thought was like, maybe this game is trying to be surreal. And I was thinking maybe the game is a giant drug trip. And what you're thinking that you're doing when you're putting people into debt and you're thinking that you're clearing their debt, you're really just sending them into really bad debt, and nothing is actually being cleared. Listen, Lime Blossom says the dev might care about finding bugs, but they probably have other methods available. Yeah, I would agree there. Yeah, I won't go into the bugs. But anyway, yeah, so that is everything here. I really appreciate you guys for joining me. Thank you so much for being here. I've got my top fans here. You guys got your badges. Really, this was great. This was fun. I like the idea suggested on yesterday's video of using stolen credit cards. Yeah, I did just see that comment. Yeah, that's a really good idea too, where you're just trying to get, again, what we're trying to do is marry the two fields, right? The aesthetics with or the world with the mechanics. Aesthetics and mechanics. They're trying to marry those together, I think, so that they create their own type of synergy, right? The idea that it feels like we're doing things for a purpose. I think that's really good. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. This was really good. I'm gonna go ahead and end it here, but I love the discussion. Thank you so much for joining me. This was awesome. I'm going to go ahead and edit this video into an actual video, one of the ones that I typically do. It will be of this kind of stuff, but it'll be more honed in. So thank you for joining me, and I will catch you guys another time.